Hello and welcome to this video where I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of an ABRSM Grade 5 theory paper. I have not seen this before, I've never seen any of these questions. So I'm going to go through a step-by-step process of how I would work it out and how I'd answer the questions. I'll try and break it down as simply as I can, but I'm going to assume a little bit of general theory knowledge on your side. If you have never studied theory before, then I might suggest you start off with Grade 1. If you have randomly stumbled across this video on the internet, then I hope you enjoy it. But I also really hope it's useful for any of you that are studying Grade 5 theory. If you're taking an exam soon, then good luck. Hope this video helps. So I'm going to do a walkthrough of the new ABRSM system. It's all multiple choice now and it's all online. But I've got a paper here, which I'm going to share my screen right now. Hopefully you can see this. I'm drawing the pen on the screen. And I will break down my workings as I go, so you can see hopefully what I'm talking about. If any of you are watching this and are from the States, then I'm going to be using British terminology, so a crotchet. I'll talk about crotchets rather than quarter notes, etc. So hopefully it all makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and let's crack on and see how quickly we can do this. I'm not going to say that we need to rush, but let's see, how quickly we can get through these questions. I do have a piano in front of me as well, which you won't have in the exam. You are allowed paper and pen, but I may refer to this a couple of times. So, question 1. There's 7 sections in the paper. The first section is on rhythm. We're talking about time signatures and how many beats in a bar. So we have 3 options for question 1.1a, and they are, for the time signature, 6/4, 4/4, and 5/4. Okay, so all of these are going to be counting in some kind of crotchet beat. Okay, so let's take a look and see if we can break down the grouping here. So the first thing we see here is a sextuplet. Okay, so a sextuplet is a group of 6 notes played in the time of 4. So we have 6 semiquavers played in the time of 4 semiquavers. So just for ease of looking at it, we've got 4 semiquavers here, and that is essentially 2 quavers or a crotchet. So that is 1 crotchet beat there, and as the 3 choices we have are in crotchet beats, there's no point thinking about if it's in a group of 3. So we're going to be counting in quavers or crotchets. So that's one. That is one group of, that's 1 crotchet. The next we have 2 quavers next to each other. That's another crotchet. So I can count them out here. 1, 2. The next one we have 2 crotchets again. So that's 2 quavers. So that's a 3rd crotchet. And here we have what we could probably assume is a 4th crotchet. We have 4 demi-semiquavers, lovely word, attached to a quaver. 4 demi-semiquavers is like 2 semiquavers, which is 1 quaver. So that is actually just 4/4. Okay? So I'm going to answer that one as 4/4. Obviously, when you do it on a computer, you just click on the option. Some of the questions have drop-down options. Some of them are just click on the right one. Some of them are drag and drop, especially if it's filling in the interval, for example. Okay, so the next question we have here is either going to be 6/8, 7/8, or 4/4. So if it's in 6/8, we'll be counting in 2 groups of 3 quavers. Or you could say 2 dotted crotchet beats. If we're in 7/8, then that's an irregular time signature. So that will be grouped like this. So a group of 3 and a group of 4, or a group of 4 and a group of 3. Okay, so let's take a look at the example here. So we have a group of 3 already. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then we have 3 semiquavers and a semiquaver rest. Okay, so that is 1 quaver, that's a 2nd quaver, and that's a 3rd quaver. So that's another group of 3, which means we have a dotted crotchet, that's a really bad dotted crotchet, 2 dotted crotchet beats, which is 6/8. So let's answer that one. here we go. I'm going to make a really big rubber. By the way, the app that I'm using is called Fourscore, which is very useful. Okay, now we have some interesting options for answers. We have 12/8, 7/4, and 5/4. Now 12/8 is called compound quadruple time because we would have 4 dotted crotchet beats in a bar. 7/4 and 5/4 are both irregular time signatures, but we're counting in crotchets. Okay, so let's move straight on to the example. The first thing we can see is a minim. So immediately we know this is not going to be in 12/8. And why is that? The reason is because if it was in 12/8, we would still be grouping the quavers in groups of 3. And here, this clearly runs over, it goes over the group of 3. So it has to be counted in crotchets. So first of all, we have 2 crotchets. So I'll just, I'll draw the crotchets underneath. We have a third crotchet, so that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have a triplet, which is 3 in the time of 2. So that's another crotchet, so that's 4. We have another triplet, which is 5. And then we have a minim rest there, which is worth 2 crotchets. So that's actually 7/4. Okay? So hopefully that all makes sense. In the exam, you have quite a while to do this. I'm just going through it relatively quickly. So if you want to pause at any moment and you want to go over your notes, or if you want to just ask me a question in the comments, do let me know and I'll try and answer it for you as well. Okay, next up we have a bar in simple time, and we want to try and convert simple time to compound time. So essentially what this means is that we are turning a 2/4 bar with 2 crotchet beats into a 6/8 bar, which has 2 dotted crotchet beats. Okay, so we're turning 2/4 into 6/8, but it's going to sound the same. So that is duple time, simple duple into compound duple time. If it was in triple time, like that, we'd be turning 3/4 into 9/8, like that. Okay, so let's take a look. We have an example here, 2/4 in with triplets. So that means if you have a simple time example with triplets, that's going to easily translate into compound time in the groups of 3 that they're in, which makes it a little bit easier actually. So we have a triplet there and a triplet here, which means that, well, let's take a look at the examples that we have here. One's in 6/8, one's in 4/8, and one's in 6/8 again. So we know immediately it's not going to be in 4/8 because 2/4 doesn't go into 4/8. We're not doing fractions. It's nothing to do with fractions. As a very quick reminder, hopefully you know this by grade 5, but the bottom number refers to the note value. So if it's a 4 on the bottom, then that refers to a crotchet. If it's an 8 on the bottom, it refers to a quaver. If it's a 16 on the bottom, it refers to a semiquaver. Okay, so we know immediately it's not 4/4. And let's take a look at how these other options are different from each other. So I'll just get rid of this so it's not so messy. We know it's not the middle one though. We have a group of 2 quavers, a group of 2 quavers, and a group of 2 quavers. We actually, if you know how to do time signatures, you know that's actually not going to be right anyway because the grouping is wrong. So the bottom example is correct because we have a group of 3 and a group of 3, and that, sorry, it's getting very messy now. That directly links into what we have up here because that's a group of 3 in a triplet. That's a group of 3 in a triplet. Hooray! Okay, so the answer is the bottom one. Okay. So just a couple of quick fire questions here. 12/16, I've just mentioned that 16 is semiquavers. In 12/16, there are how many dotted quaver beats in a bar? So what is a dotted quaver? How many semiquavers are in a dotted quaver? So a dotted quaver is 3 semiquavers, okay? Dotted quaver, 3 semiquavers. So in 12/16, there are 12 semiquavers, and how many 3's go into 12? So we've got 4. So that means that in 12/16, there are 4 dotted quaver beats in a bar. Okay, so I'll just kind of try and write this out for it to, so you can visualize it. So this is 1 dotted quaver worth, that's another dotted quaver worth, that's another dotted quaver worth, and that's another dotted quaver worth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 dotted quavers, 12 semiquavers, 4 dotted quavers. Okay, so that's the answer for that one. And a dotted semibreve is equal to how many minims? Okay, so if you put a dot after a note, that adds half of the original value. So for example, if you have a dotted crotchet, then that is a crotchet plus half of its original value. If we have a dotted semibreve, that is a semibreve, which is 4 crotchets plus half of its original value, which is a minim. So that's 6 crotchets altogether. So the answer here is how many? So 6 crotchets. How many minims? It's 3, because there are 6 crotchets in 3 minims. Okay, let's quickly move on. So which of these is grouped correctly? So we are in 4/8. Okay, so this is an interesting time signature, 4/8. It's going to look like that. So we need to group it like that. It's not grouped in 3s because the top number isn't like a multiple of 3. So first of all, we know that the bottom one is wrong. And why is that? I'm going to use a different color for the wrong things. I should probably have done... there we go. Let's use blue for wrong. So this one is, we immediately know is wrong. And the reason for that is here, that is not grouped correctly because that is not a quaver. Because we have to group these into quavers or groups of 2 quavers. So immediately we can get rid of that. So process of elimination. Let's look at the first 2 options. That's the same. That's the same as that. Okay, so these are all grouped together and the ones underneath it are grouped differently. So again, that is not a quaver or some kind of multiple of a quaver. So that is also wrong. Let's get rid of that. So the top one is correct, I believe. By the way, if I get any of this wrong, then apologies, I'm only human. I've never seen these questions before, so I'll go through my thought process and feel free to call me out in the comments as well. 1.5, let's look at these rests. Okay, so we also, apart from grouping notes, we also have to group rests. So, do these make sense? Here we have 6/4, so we're going to be grouping these in groups of 4 quavers. So that looks right, and that looks right. So that's correct there. So the reason that's correct is that would not be a crotchet rest because essentially that would go over the 2 beats. So that's a group of 4, and that's a group of 4 there, 4 quavers. If you had a crotchet, that would be bang in the middle of these groups and it just wouldn't make sense. Okay, so that is correct. For this next one, we have 2 crotchets next to each other, which means that's a group of 3, and that's a group of 3. So if we're in 6/4, we want to group it into 2 groups of 3 crotchets. Okay, so that one also makes sense. That is right. And the last one is also right, I believe, because we have a group of 3 and a group of 3. So yeah, do correct me if I'm wrong here. But 6/4 is in 2 groups of 3 crotchets as opposed to 3-2, which is 3 groups of 2 crotchets. Okay, makes sense, hopefully. All right, let's move on. So we're going on to section 2, which is all about pitch. So we're talking about names of notes, we're talking about scales, we're talking about pitches, all that kind of stuff. So let's go. The first thing we're going to take a look at is the alto clef. So the alto clef, for those of you that don't know, is also sometimes referred to as the viola clef, which is it's the clef that viola players use. They don't use the treble clef or the bass clef. And the reason for that is the pitch that the viola plays at is a little bit too low when you write it out, because the lowest note is a C below middle C. It's a little bit too low for the treble clef, but it's also, it goes way too high for the bass clef, so that's why we have the alto clef. So anyway, just a quick recap. The middle line of the alto clef is middle C. Okay, so if you want to do this by counting up, you can. So if this is middle C, you've got C, D, E, F, G, A on top, and then so that will be a B there. So another way of working that out is you can also flip that down an octave, and that would be here, which is 1 below the middle line, which is middle C. Okay, so if you also, there's another kind of trick way of doing this, which is if you imagine this is the treble clef, then if that the top would be F. Sorry, imagine this is the treble clef, so that note will be an A, and you just go up 1 note. That's one way of working it out, but I think the best thing to do is just to realize that the middle line is a middle C, so you can just kind of count up from there. All right, so next one. Tick 1 box to show the correct enharmonic equivalent of this note. If you don't know what an enharmonic equivalent is, then basically it's the same note but written differently, okay? So an F sharp could also be written as a G flat. It would sound the same, but it's got a different function, okay? So just to let you know, orally, so this is an F sharp, but if it was written as a G flat, it would sound exactly the same. So we need to think about how the flats and sharps correspond to each other. So if you have a B natural, it could also be written as a C flat, because if you take a C, you'd be going down a semitone on the keyboard, which would sound the same as the B natural, but written differently. It just depends what the function is within the chord or the key signature. Okay, so F double sharp. So double sharp, we're going up 2 semitones from the F, and that would sound the same as a G. Okay, so that's the answer for that one. So if we're looking at this one, a G flat will sound the same as an F sharp, etc. So next question, here is a bar at sounding pitch for the trumpet in B flat. So in the orchestra, we have a number of transposing instruments. This question is basically just saying, it gives you an example of something that has been transposed up a major second, and we have to figure out whether that is correct or not. So the first thing that we need to look at is the key signature. So the key signature here is in G major, and because we have 1 sharp, and it goes to A major. A is 1 tone, or a major second, above a G, so that is correct. Okay, so the next note we have here is, I don't know why I'm doing these in blue and red, it's just kind of random. So that's correct. So here we have an A, and we're going up a tone to a B here. So that is correct. That is a major second above it. Okay, so here, it looks like an F, but it's actually an F sharp. Don't forget to check the key signature whenever you refer back on this question. So we're going from an F sharp to a G sharp below it. Again, we know it's a G sharp because we've got it in the key signature. So that's also correct. Okay, so this next one here, I'll get rid of these things. This next one here is a C natural, and we're going to a D sharp. That is 3 semitones, so it is not a major second. So that is incorrect. Okay, next one is a B flat, and that goes to a C sharp, so again, that one is incorrect. That is not a major second. All right, so some people would get this wrong just because they haven't taken into account the key signature, which has 3 sharps in it. They might think that's a C natural, but it's not. Okay, quickly going on to the next one, 2.4. This is where we are relating the pitches to each other. The best thing I find for this question is to imagine where middle C is, okay? So middle C in the bass clef is here, middle C in the alto clef is here, middle C in the treble clef is here. So we can see visually whether they're higher or lower than it. Okay, these are all true or false, so 50-50 chance of getting it right, basically. A and B are the same pitch, is that correct? Well, let's take a look. So A, the pitch is higher than middle C. B, the pitch is lower than middle C, so immediately we know this is false. And B is actually an octave below A. Okay, so the next question is, B is 1 octave lower than C. B is 1 octave lower than C. So let's relate everything to where middle C is. So in B, this is a 5th below middle C. That's a 5th below middle C. And here, this is actually 1.5 octaves above middle C here. So 1 octave above B would be there in blue. That's 1 octave above B. So this is actually 2 octaves above B. So that means, so going back to the question, B is 1 octave lower than C. That is incorrect. It's actually 2 octaves lower than C. Okay, and last one. Annoyingly, they label these as A, B, C, the questions, so that doesn't help. C is 1 octave higher than A. Okay, let's get rid of all of these workings. You can have your own paper and pen with this, so you can just rub out your workings out. If you write it down, obviously the actual paper itself is no longer physical, it's on the screen. So 2.4, we have, so C is 1 octave, 2.4 C. C is 1 octave higher than A, is that correct? Well, let's take a look. So this is the F above middle C, which would be written here, and that is the F above that, so that is actually correct, that one. C is 1 octave higher than A. Okay, let's move on. Next page. Keys and scales. Hopefully I haven't missed out anything there. No. Keys and scales. So we're looking at key signatures, and we're looking at basically adding in notes that are missing from key signatures. We're looking at melodies without a key signature. We have to add the key signature in. We're looking at minor scales. Again, I'm hoping you have worked a little bit towards grade 5 and you're not jumping in the deep end. Because if you are, then good luck. Okay. So the first one we have multiple choice in all of these online papers now. Tick correctly the written key signature of D flat major. So the order of the flats is always going to be this: B, E, A, D, G, C, F. That's the flats, okay? I can work this out by, I can remember this by saying blanket explodes and dad gets cold feet. And then if you want to know, okay, that doesn't make sense, sorry. Okay, so this example, okay, so we're looking at keys and scales. So we're talking about the order of flats, the order of sharps. We want to fill in, if we don't have a key signature, we want to fill that in. We want to fill in missing notes from scales and looking at chromatic notes and what position, talking in the technical terms of what position the notes are in a scale. So let me break it down. If you want to remember the order of sharps in a key signature, we have a little saying, which is a bit weird, but there we go. Father Christmas gives Dad an electric blanket. Okay, that's the sharps. The flats are blanket explodes and Dad gets cold feet. Bit of a weird saying, but that's a good way of just remembering the order of the sharps and the flats. Here we are in D flat major. All of the examples have 5 flats in them in various clefs. We need to figure out which one's right. Quite often you can do a process of elimination by looking at them. So the first one immediately kind of looks wrong because it's not in the standard order. But if we just kind of break it down and go into it, we actually start with an A flat, so that's wrong because we want to start with a B flat. Okay, the next one we have B, E, A, D, G. Okay, that looks right. So we have the right notes, but are they in the right order? Let's take a look. So we have B, F, so immediately that's wrong. And here it doesn't start with a B flat, so that is wrong as well. So that's the right answer. 3.2, we have 6 sharps, very scary. So we're looking at the order of the sharps, F, C, G, D, A, F, C, G, D, A, E. Let's go through it. F, yes. F, C, G. That is not a D, so that's wrong. Okay, so here we have, we're in the tenor clef, which is sometimes used by trombones and cellos. Probably more cellos than trombones, but it's not really used that commonly anymore. The first one we have here is an E. Middle C in the tenor clef is on that line, so that means that's an E. Okay, here we have a very interesting example because we have an F, C, G, D, A, E technically, but we never ever use ledger lines in key signatures. Never. So that's wrong. That should be down there. And then that one should be down here, I think. So that is wrong. So as a process of elimination, it has to be this one. Let's just double check it. That's an F. That's a C. That's a G. That's a D. That's an A, and that is an E. So that is correct. Okay, so now we are looking at a piece of music with no key signature, and we have to figure out what the key signature is. So we have 3, let's go through what the sharps are. We've got a C sharp, we've got an F sharp, a G sharp, and a C sharp. So let's write them out in order. F, C, G. So if we have 3 sharps, we could be an A major, or the relative minor would be F sharp minor. Let's take a look. Are there any other notes that stand out as being weird or accidentals? No. So I'm going to say that is A major. Okay. So yeah, if you had, for example, F, C, and D sharps in there, then you would assume that, and there wasn't a G in it, you would assume that it was that it had 4 sharps in the key signature. So that would be E major or C sharp minor. Okay, so we've got a lot of flats coming up now. Let's count them out. B. Let's try and do it in order, actually. So B, E, A, D, G. What comes after G? We have a C. Do we have a C flat here? Yes, we do. We don't, generally for grade 5, we don't need to know 6 sharps and 6 flats. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flats here. What key signature has 6 flats? Well, that is G flat major. I'm not going to go through necessarily all the tips and tricks about how to remember the key signatures. I might mention a couple, but with key signatures, that is one that you really just have to sit down and try and memorize. Relative minors, also, I'm hoping that you would know how those work, but just a quick tip: if you get the relative major, if you get a major key and you go down 3 semitones, not including the original note, that will give you the relative minor. So if you're in C major and you go down 3 semitones, that will be A minor. So 6 flats, this could be G flat major. the relative minor is not an option here, so we don't even need to think about it. But if it was the relative minor, we would have to raise the 7th note. So we'd have a, if it's E flat minor, we would have a raised 7th note there. So let's go on to the last one. We actually only have one sharp here. Normally if it's one sharp and a major key, it would be G major. But the sharp that we have is not an F sharp. It's actually a G sharp. Now that's kind of weird because G sharp would be the 3rd sharp. So if you had a G sharp, you could, and it's in a major key, you could also have an F and a C. But the C here is a C natural, and the F is an F natural as well. So this G sharp has to be a raised 7th. And what minor key signature has a raised 7th? That is a G. Now the 7th note of A minor is a G, so that is a G sharp. So this answer is A minor. Okay, this next one, we have a major scale, which is B major, and we want to add in the missing notes. So B major has 5 sharps, and the 5 sharps, if we refer back to this, are F, C, G, D, A. Okay, so I'm just going to write these out. F, C, G, D, A, and we're starting off here, there, with a B. So you've got a C sharp there, a D sharp there. And this needs to be an E because we're doing it in order. There is no E sharp in the key signature, so that's just an E natural. Next we have an F sharp, G sharp. So now we've done the C, we've done the D, we've done the F, we've done the G. And so that means that the next note in the scale is going to be an A, and that needs to be an A sharp because that's in the key signature there. Okay, let's move on. So now onto the minor scales. Now this is a little bit tricky because they could be melodic or harmonic. So just to recap on the minor scales, if you have a harmonics minor, then you raise the 7th note, ascending and descending, it doesn't change if you're going up or going down. If you have a melodic minor, then you raise the 6th and the 7th note going up, and you lower them back down again, going down, descending. Okay, now this is a doubly hard question because we don't have a clef here. So we don't know what notes these are starting on. So this takes a fair bit of working out. Also, we have an absolute ton of flats here. So we have 1, 2, let's just count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not 7 flats because the 7th flat is the same as the 1st flat because it's a scale. So we have 6 flats. I just mentioned what 6 flat minor scale is, and that is a E flat minor scale. So we want to find the clef in which this is an E flat. So if this was a treble clef, that would be a C flat, so that's wrong. If this was the bass clef, then that would be an E flat. Okay, so just one thing to mention as well. It's not always the case that by counting out the sharps and the flats that will give you the right key signature, because you might have an accidental of a raised sharp or a raised note on the 7th. So here, this is a melodic minor scale going down because we have B, we have the 6 flats basically, and if that was going up, then the C would have been raised to a C natural. Let's play it out. And then D would be raised to a D natural. And then coming down, it's lowered again to a C flat. A D flat and a C natural. A D flat and a C flat going down. If this was in a harmonic minor, have that raised note there. So that would be a D sharp, but that would be the same going down. So very tricky question, this one. So this is a bass clef. Again, apologies if some of the things I say don't make sense or you're unsure about my kind of workings out as I'm going through it. Yeah, as I say, I've not seen this paper before, so hopefully most of these things make sense that I'm saying. And as ever, if you want to ask me a question about this or correct me, then just put a comment underneath and you can correct me to your heart's content. This next one, 3.5B, has only got one sharp in it. Now, if this was a major scale with one sharp, it would be a G major scale, which means the relative minor would be E minor. So this could be an E minor scale. However, in E minor, we would also have to raise the 7th note. Okay, so immediately we know this is not going to be E minor because we have only got one note that's been raised, which means that it has to be A minor, which in the key signature has no sharps and no flats, but we raise the 7th going up. And also we know that this is a harmonic minor, not melodic, because we've only one note has been raised, because if we're in the melodic, the 6th and the 7th would be raised. Okay, so this is the raised 7th. I mentioned before about the A minor scale has a raised 7th, which is a G. So now we have to work out which clef we're in. Which of these clefs means that this would be an A? If we're in treble, that would be a G, so that's wrong. If we're in bass, that would be a B. That, referring to that note, I mean. If we're in the alto clef, that would be an A. So alto clef is the correct answer here. Okay, this next example has got two sharps in it. And it's descending. So the 6th and 7th notes are here. So they've been lowered already. So okay, so the 6th note could be a sharp. The 7th note would be raised out of the key signature. It wouldn't be included in the key signature. So this one, we have to have a think about what notes they start on. So if this was in the treble clef, that would be a B, and that's a B. So in B minor, we have two sharps, and they are C sharp and F sharp. If this was in the if this was in the treble clef, this is a C sharp, so that's one, and that's an F sharp. The 6th and 7th note would have been raised going up, but they've been lowered back to their original natural state, which here would be an A and a G. So the correct answer here is actually the treble clef, because we're in B minor. So just to recap, B minor has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp, and these are in the correct positions for those. If we're in treble, that's a B, that's a B, and it's a B minor melodic descending scale because these two have been lowered back to their original natural states. Nice and easy, this question. Okay. Oh dear, they make you work for it, don't they? True or false? Hopefully this will be a bit easier. This is a chromatic scale starting on F sharp in the alto clef. So let's go through it note by note. So we have an F sharp, then a G. I'll play it to you as I go through it on the piano. F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, B sharp, which is a C, sounds like a C, C sharp, D natural, D sharp, E, E sharp, but, oh no, that's just an F. That is not right. The last note failed us. Unfortunately, that is false. That needs to be an F sharp at the end. Unless they're calling that an F sharp in the same, if it's in the same bar, which I don't think they are. Obviously, if you're in a bar and you have an F sharp followed by an F later on, it would still be an F sharp, but I don't think that's right. So I think this is false, because the last note should still have the sharp sign on it, I believe. I might be wrong with that, but I'll say that's false. So next one, correctly written chromatic scale beginning on A. Let's go down. So this is an A, G sharp. Watch out for enharmonic equivalents in this question, by the way. G natural, F sharp. And again, obviously you won't have a piano with you, but I'm just doing it for dramatic effect. F natural. Okay, here, this is an E sharp. So that E sharp is the enharmonic equivalent of the F natural. So we know immediately this is also false. Okay, next one, we have technical terms questions. So in the technical terms, the first note of the scale is tonic. The second note of the scale is supertonic. Really bad writing here. The third note of the scale is the mediant. Then we have the subdominant. I'm just going to put subdom. 5 is dominant. 6 is submediant because it's the middle note of the subdominant chord. And number 7 is the leading note. I haven't left myself much room here. There we go. So we can use that to refer back to if we need to. So in E flat major, the first question, this is the supertonic of E flat major. That means that it'd be the second note of E flat major, but we have an E flat, so that's wrong. That is the tonic. Okay, the next question is, this is the tonic in F sharp major. Well, that's an F sharp, so that's true. And last one, this is the dominant in E minor. What note is this? It's an A. So the A is the fourth note of the scale, so E, F, G, A. So 4 would be the subdominant. So that is also false. Okay. Intervals, section 4. So hopefully you've done some work on intervals and you know vaguely about major intervals, minor intervals, augmented, diminished. Compound intervals is a new thing for grade 5. So compound intervals is anything over an octave. So for example, a ninth would be a compound second, 10th would be a compound third. So here we're basing everything off the bottom note. Very exciting. Intervals. So that's an interval is the gap between two notes. The first gap sounds like this. E flat to F. It's over an octave, so it's either going to be a compound or a larger than 8 interval. So it's actually either a compound second or a ninth. So we know immediately that it's not going to be this one, the 10th. So what I do with these questions with compound intervals is I take the second note and I flip it down the octave. So here, that's an F above middle C. I would put it down here just to make it easier to work out. E flat to F natural is just a major second. So that means it's not minor, that means it's not augmented, that means it has to be a compound major second. This is another compound interval. We can see immediately it's bigger than an octave. We've got an F sharp to B. So let's flip the B down the octave. And that is just a perfect fourth. But we don't actually have a compound perfect fourth as an option. So it's definitely not compound perfect fifth. If it's not called a compound fourth, it would be called an 11th. It's not augmented, it's perfect. So it's a perfect 11th here. Last one here, this is within an octave. So C to B flat. A B flat is 2 semitones lower than an octave, which means it's a minor seventh. If it's a semitone lower than an octave, it's a major seventh. Always look out for the key signatures as well. So that is just a minor seventh. Okay, now we don't have to answer these with numbers. We just have to say what kind of interval it is. So what notes do we have? We've got a B to a C. That's just one semitone. So that means it's going to be a minor second. You might ask, well, if it's a semitone, could it also be an augmented first? Which kind of, yes, but you don't really have augmented firsts. Or unison, or whatever you would call it. So next question, we have a G sharp to a B natural, which is 3 semitones. So that's a minor third. So that's just minor, you just have to put minor. It's got 2 minor ones so far. Last question is an E. Again, we've got a compound interval here. So I'd put this down an octave to a G flat, just so it's easier to work out. E to G sharp is a major third because that's the major, that's the third in the major key. E to G natural is a minor third. That means we still have the third, but it's a flat. So it would actually sound exactly the same as a major second, but it's written as a minor third because it's the third, it's some form of G, which means it's the third note of the scale. So that is actually a diminished third. So just to recap, the difference between a major second and a diminished third, even though they sound the same, they're written differently. Let's say we're in C major, let's say we're in, E minor here. So the minor third would be a G, and it has to be some form of G for it to be a third. It's flattened again, so it's diminished, even though it sounds the same as an F sharp, it's written differently. So here in the exam, you would actually drag and drop these notes onto the screen. Here, we're just going to write them in. Compound perfect fifth. Okay, we've got a C flat. To make it easier, let's just put it up a semitone. So a C to a G would be a perfect fifth. So that means a C flat to a G flat would be a perfect fifth as well, because you're still going down a semitone, and it would be up here because it's compound. Next one. Okay, augmented seventh. An augmented seventh, it sounds the same as an octave. So it's the enharmonic equivalent of the octave, basically. Because if you think about it, an octave down a semitone is a major seventh. What's one semitone higher than a major seventh? An augmented. So that means an octave sounds the same. It's an enharmonic equivalent. So we've got a C down here. An octave from a C is a C. The enharmonic equivalent is a B sharp. So this is a B sharp above it, which would be written here. So any form of B would be a seventh. It just so happens that that is the augmented seventh. Okay, what note do we have here? That's an F. So we want to go up a minor 13th. Okay, so what's a minor 13th? Could also be known as a compound sixth, because you have an octave. Compound second is the 9th. Compound third is a 10th. Compound fourth is an 11th. Compound fifth is a 12th. Compound sixth is a 13th. So it's not like 8 plus 5 or 8 plus 6. It is, yeah, that is the compound sixth from an F. So it has to be, if it's a sixth, it has to be some kind of D, and it'll be up here. F to D natural would just be a major sixth. So it has to go down another semitone. Last question here, we have major third above B flat, that is just a D. Hopefully it won't take you too long to work that one out. So D is the third note of the major scale of B flat major. Right, so let's go on to chords. We're on to section 5 of 7. So with this question, we have to write a suitable chord for the two cadences in this melody. So we have 4 options. We have a 1 chord, 2, 4, or 5. And the first thing we can do is look at the key signature. We're in F major, which means I find it quite useful when you have these questions to write out the chords. So FAC would be chord 1, chord 2 would be G, B flat, D, chord 4 would be B flat, D, F, chord 5 would be C, E, and G. Okay, so we have these notes here. We want F, A, C, F, A. So that is just chord 1, because that fits in with these notes. So basically the whole point of this, we're trying to harmonize this melody. So that fits nicely. And the next one we have an E and a G, and that fits in with this chord, chord 5. So that's chord 1 to 5. And that cadence would be imperfect, because you're finishing on the 5. Next here we have D, B flat, and G, which is chord 2. And then here we have G, E, C, should be chord 5. And last up we have F, C, A, F, which is chord 1. So finishing on a lovely perfect cadence. And get rid of all of that so you can see it a bit easier. Right, next we are looking at this chord progression. I'll play it to you so you can, well, first of all I won't play it to you, and then I'll play it to you afterwards so you can hear what it sounds like. Obviously you won't have a piano, so you won't be able to play it in the exam, so you have to be able to work it out from reading the notes. This one I actually find relatively easy, just because you can judge this off looking at the bass notes. We're in D major, which means that chord 1 will be D, chord 4 will be G, chord 5 will be A. So you can base everything off that. Here we have a D, which is chord 1, going to a 5, which is going to an A, which is 5. So 1 to 5 is an imperfect cadence because we're finishing on a 5. And it would sound like this. Doesn't feel finished, imperfect. Next we have C major. So C is 1, F is 4, and G is 5. We have a G there. G going to a C, so we've got a 5 going to a 1, which is perfect. And it sounds like this. Sounds nice, it feels finished. Now this is talking about inversions. So an inversion is taking a chord like C major, changing what the bottom note is, the root note, the bass note, I mean. So that's changing, so that's with C major with a C on the bottom, which would be referred to as 1A, 1B, which has the middle note on the bottom, 1C, which has the top note on the bottom. Okay, so that is a very quick description of what inversions are. So again, I'm going to write out what these are. So we're in G major, it tells us there, which is very handy. So chord 1 is G, B, D. I like writing out this little graph. Hopefully this will be useful for you as well. So chord 2 we have A, C, E. Chord 4 we have C, E, G. Chord 5 we have D, F sharp, and A. And here the inversions you can refer to, so you're kind of using it as a graph. If this note is on the bottom, for example, and the other 3 notes are included, it's 1B. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this chord here, which has an F sharp, an A and a D, which is chord 5, because we have all of these 3 notes. The F sharp is on the bottom, so that means it's 5, and F sharp's on the bottom, so that's in the middle row, so that's 5B. Okay. So let's take a look at this one now. So what are the notes? We have an A, C, and an E, which is chord 2, A, C, E, there. And the bottom note's an A, so it's just the bottom line, which is 2A. So that's root position, supertonic chord, if you're getting fancy. And lastly, we have this chord here, which is a G major chord. So we have G, G, B, G, which is 1, and G's on the bottom there. So that's just 1A. Hopefully that all makes sense. I'll play you chord C, which is this. If it was 1B, it would have B on the bottom. If it was 1C, it would have C on the bottom. So changing the bass note, it just changes how it feels, how it sounds. And it can also change the function of the chord as well, because it could lead to something else. Okay, now section 6 is terms, signs, and instruments. You have to learn quite a few Italian terms, German terms, and French terms, plus also the like accents and dynamic markings and things like that, articulation, dynamic markings. There's lots of different ways of remembering the Italian, French and German terms. I'm not going to go into all of them because that's a very long process. And thankfully, you don't have to remember as many as you used to. You used to have to remember loads and loads and loads. Also, they have changed this. They have made it slightly easier so that you don't have as many doubling up. Let's get straight into it because we're nearly at an hour, and I wanted to try and do it in an hour if possible. Doloroso. Okay, this links to the Italian word for sad or sorrowful. The way that I remember this one is Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter. Her first name, well, she makes everyone very sad and sorrowful, so I remember this one. Doloroso, Dolores Umbridge makes people sad and sorrowful. Okay, I don't know if that will help at all. Niente, so niente is, a is 2 in Italian, and niente is nothing, so I always try and, for some reason, I remember like nada is nothing, right? And kind of links in, or like nichts in German is nothing as well. So 2 nothing in Italian. Cantando, so cantare is to sing in Italian, cantabile is in a singing style, in a singing way. Canta can be like a song or sings or whatever. Anyway, it's singing. So this next one is talking about ornaments. So an ornament is something that makes the melody fancy. You're adding in extra notes. But instead of writing it out like TR for a trill or this for the grace note, these are written out as musically. So a mordant looks like this. A mordant looks like this. A lower mordant looks like this. A turn looks like that. A lower turn looks like that. So that's an upper turn without the line through it. So just to make you aware of what it sounds like, a mordant, you take the original note, you go up 1 and you go down 1 quite quickly. So this is a mordant, upper mordant. The reverse is for a lower mordant. Da da da. You go down 1 note, back up again. A turn, you start on the note above the note, go back to the original one, down 1 and back up again. A trill, you're going up and down very quickly. Acciaccatura, also known as a grace note, is very quick. So you start on the note above it and you go down to the note you want to finish on. Appoggiatura is the same thing but slower. I think poggi is, you could be fat and it takes longer to get somewhere. Probably not the most politically correct way of remembering it, but there we go. So what do we have here? We have a G going up a note and back to the G. So we've got the original note going up one and down one again. So that is an upper mordant. That's not an acciaccatura, because if it was, you wouldn't have that first one. It would just go, but this one sounds like this. Here, you are turning around this G. So G is the focal point, and you're going up, back, down, down again, and back up again. So that one is a upper turn. Now we have a few questions about the orchestra. These are kind of general knowledge questions that you need to know. The oboe uses a double reed. Now, does it, or does it use a single reed? That's something you just need to remember. The oboe just uses a single reed. The double reed is used by the clarinet. So that's false. The xylophone produces sounds of definite pitch. So percussion instruments are grouped into definite, which means it makes a note. It can make a note of definite pitch. So indefinite, it's just a bang or a crash or a loud sound. So some examples of definite are xylophone, which means this is true, glockenspiel, marimba. Indefinite, you'd have a snare drum, a cymbal, or something along those lines. The clarinet has a higher range than the bassoon. You need to know the general families of orchestral instruments, and the order in which they are. So there's four main ones you need to know for each one. Strings, violin, then viola, then cello, then double bass at the bottom. A woodwind, you have flute at the top, then clarinet, then oboe, then bassoon at the bottom. Clarinet and oboe ranges are quite similar. Brass, you have trumpet at the top, then French horn, then trombone, then tuba. So that's something you just kind of need to remember, really. The clarinet does have a higher range than the bassoon. The bassoon is in the bass clef, clarinet's in the treble clef. Cello is the lowest sounding string instrument, is false, it's the double bass. A flute might be played consort. What does that mean? With mute. Can you mute a flute? Unfortunately not. So that is false. A flute might be played consort. You can't mute a flute. I'm going to try and have this excerpt on the screen at the same time as going through the questions. So here, similar to something we had before, we have to look at the pitch and how they relate to each other. We got to refer back to bar 1 of the flute part. The flute is an A, not the A above middle C, but it's the A above that. These are rewritten, so only A is rewritten 2 octaves lower. A is actually rewritten 1 octave lower. B and C are correctly written 2 octaves lower. So B is 2 octaves lower, and so is C. Because middle C would be here, middle C would be here, and the example we have is 2 octaves above these examples here. Okay, that's it. Only tick 1, I believe. Yeah, tick 1 correct statement. Right, so true or false questions. Hopefully we can do this quite quick fire. The music should be performed playfully. It says scherzando, which means in a joking style, playfully. That's true. Allegro is quick. All the notes in bar 1 should be slightly separated. Not necessarily. The first beat is not staccato, the other ones are staccato. The highest note of the extract is an E, so that means you have to go through the whole extract and look to see if it's an E. From what I can see, it is just a C. The top note's a C. So that's false. The first 4 notes in the left-hand part of bar 7 form a chromatic scale. So G, A, A sharp, B. That is not a chromatic scale because we don't have a G sharp. The first 4 notes, G of the left-hand bar, yes. So G to A is not a chromatic scale. Lots of false ones here. And then finally, the flute plays an appoggiatura in bar 7. That's not an appoggiatura, it's a mordent. We're referring to this, by the way, I believe. So quite a lot of false ones there. Which other instrument is best suited to play the flute part so it sounds at the same pitch? Double bass violin, horn, tuba. Violin is the only one of those that can play as high as a flute. Okay, and 2 more questions, nearly there. Supertonic in C major is a D. How many times does it appear in the flute part? Okay, this is a Where's Wally counting game. We're looking for Ds. Hunt the D. All right. 1. Okay, I haven't missed one. So A, C, B, A, G, F, E. Yeah, that's 1. 2. 3. 1, 2, 3. I don't think I've missed one. Okay, I'll put 3. And final question, nearly there. Smashed it. You do have a lot longer to do this. I'm just talking my way through it. 7.5. The note in the flute part of bar 4 is worth how many demi-semiquavers? So the flute part in bar 4 is a minim. How many demi-semiquavers go into a minim? Let's work it out. So that is 2 crotchets. That is 4 quavers, which is 8. I don't need to write it out. Which is 8 semiquavers, and then that's 16 demi-semiquavers. There is an instruction to play suddenly quietly. In which bar? Okay, which bar do you think it is? It is in bar 4, because we have piano subito. Subito is suddenly, P is quiet, and bar 4 is the answer. That's the end of the exam. Congratulations. Hopefully you understood most of what I was talking about. Some of my reasonings might have been a bit complicated, but they work for me. If you want to talk through any of this, then let's get a conversation going in the comments. Tell me your favorite ways of remembering some of the Italian terms, for example, or remembering the key signatures or the order of the notes. I'd love to hear your ways of working. I teach music theory, so any new ways of working these out would be much appreciated. There's a few things that I didn't really get into, for example, the order of the sharps and the flats and how that's all worked out. But maybe if this video is popular enough, I'll go into some of those things. And again, if this is popular enough and you want it, I can always do a grade 4 walkthrough, grade 3 walkthrough, grade 2, grade 1. But for now, that's it. That's an hour. Hope you've stayed with me. And it's been a pleasure and a privilege to work through this exam paper with you. Hope it's been useful, and good luck if you're taking the grade 5 exam anytime soon. I shall see you later. Have a great rest of your day.